Howdy, this is Mackenzie Franklin from SideGame LLC here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Today we're going to be reorganizing the Lost Ruins of Arnak, designed by Min and Elwin and published by CGE. Now this is a fully sleeved copy of the game that includes the Expedition Leaders expansion and has no lid lift. It's all in this original box, organized for speed of setup to get you started gaming as soon as possible. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please make sure that you do. It is the best way to help us grow. Let's get started with reorganizing the Lost Ruins of Arnak. First off, we'll lift the lid here, and inside you'll see that we have the game board on top. We remove the game board, and you'll see a variety of organizers and bags for the various components. The first organizer that I want to talk about are these white box organizers. You get them 10 for $1 at the Dollar Tree. I'll leave a link in the description below for all of the things that I talk about in this video, but you'll take the lid off here, put it underneath, and place it where it belongs. There's a lot of specific areas where you put the resources in this game, so it's nice to have them in their own containers, and boom, you've got a tray that's going to hold them. It also is going to show your order for upgrading, which is really nice. Let's go ahead and take a look at these 5 organizers for these small white ones. We have one that has all of the compasses here. We've upgraded components for this one. I'll leave a link in the description below where you can find upgrades for those. And then we have the remainder of the resources. We got our arrowheads, we got our coins, we have our tablets, and then in this upper right corner, we've got the last one, those red gems. Really like the component quality in this game. On this left side here, we have all of the components for the solo game. This is for specifically the search for the professor. You're going to have all of your printed components, those event cards. You have a little score track to mark where you are in the campaign. You'll need to add some additional cubes in order to track specific achievements and milestones. You'll have a lot of these just in one bag, ready to go if you decide to play that physical copy of that solo campaign. Once again, I'll leave a link in the description below where you can find a way to print it out yourself. We've also just got loose here a staff. This is your round marker, and it's also going to be the red staff. It allows you to remove 2 cards from the market at the end of each round. I really like this because it's going to allow you to see more cards and change up the variance a little bit. We've also got a silica gel packet in here for freshness, and then a pencil to track your score. We then have a bag here that has a bunch of components you're probably not going to use once you use the expansion. First off, you have an assistant that gets replaced by a new one, the blue staff, which is replaced by the red one, and lastly, your starter deck cards for the different colors. Now that you're using the new expedition leaders, you pretty much don't have a use for these. Maybe you want to play a more introductory game, that's why we have these in here just in case, and they're sleeved up and ready to go. For all of the standard size sleeves in this game, we actually use the Pro Mat Ultra Pro standard size. I really like the way these shuffle and feels, and it allows you to see the artwork on both sides. Strongly recommend take a look at the links in the description below for some of these for yourself. Up next, we have all of the components for the different players. Once again, because you're playing with those expedition leaders, you aren't actually tied to a specific color based on the one you pick. So this is all the green components with their workers, their magnifying glass, and their book token. And lastly, the campsite token. This is just to remind you that you are this color. We'll have one of those for the 4 different player colors, for blue, and for yellow, and lastly for red. You'll just put those in their own little bags, toss them to the player based on what color they want to be. We then have all of the expedition leaders as well as the references. So we have all these references here in case you need to know the different symbology or extra references for the turn order and whatnot. We also have a new one that's going to introduce some new concepts. So it's good to have these ready and at hand. And underneath those, we have all of your expedition leaders. You simply flip open them like this, and they're going to have a space for your deck, maybe additional tokens that you may need, assistance, and these new blue areas. So I really like the way that these work in the game, and they make me excited to jump back into it again and again. So you'll have all of the different expedition leaders in a stack there, and underneath that, you'll have your remaining game boards for that base game version. You probably won't touch these again because you'll be using the expedition leader boards. They are still used for solo, however. On this right side here, we're going to be using a makeup organizer. I have a link in the description below for these. I really like the way that this has those 3 distinct sections. You can simply lift that lid off and you're ready to go. You can use this for a variety of components. I really like the way these function. So let's talk about how we use it in this game. First off, we open up this lid and you'll see on this right side, we have some larger tokens. We've got a timepiece for the first player and then a specific expedition leader token. You only use that if you're playing with them. Underneath that, you have components that have specific spaces they go on the board. You have your achievements for the research track that give you those temporary bonuses. I like just putting my hand over these 2 sections and then dumping them out on the board. You also have the tablets that you're going to allocate based on the player count, and you'll have the specific tokens that you'll use to block off different spaces based on lower player counts. So you have all that in that right section. In this middle section here, you'll have all of your different assistants. You'll shuffle these up and then put them where they belong on the board, and then you can just store them in here when you're finished. Next to them, we have all of your different totems. You can hit these from doing those different exploration actions. Once again, you will just kind of grab them, put them where they belong, and then flip some face down or face up based on the different site. do that all randomly. And then on this left side here, we have our cardboard, different solo tiles. These are for more of the easier settings you'll need to actually print off, and we'll talk about that later, the harder difficulty. But then you have some various tokens based on the expedition leader you're using. For example, one of the expedition leaders has an extra worker, so he's in there, and somebody has one of these cool falcon tokens that you'll have here. You'll also store all of your fear and ×3 tokens in here in case you do run out of those cards. So these are all going to be in those 3 dividers. I like having this because you're not having to open up a bunch of bags. You simply remove that lid and you're ready to go. Super, super nice. The next section we're going to talk about are the cards. So first off, we have all the expedition leaders here. They're organized by their little face in the corner. You'll give those 4 cards to each player as well as 2 fear to make their starting deck. So those are all this first section. Underneath that, we have the item cards. You'll put them back and forth. That way they're nice and organized. You're not going to get anything confused. And then underneath all of those items, you're going to have your different fear cards. So these are all just here. Once again, give 2 to each player. And then lastly, you'll have all of the relic cards. You'll get some new item and relic cards in the new expansion. You'll just simply shuffle those in and then shuffle them up and place them on the board. And they're ready to go. Up next, we have a score pad, as well as one of the expedition leaders that's a little bit larger. He's not going to fit as nicely in that spot as the others, so because of his larger board, he's going to go on this right section here. On this left side here, we have our large cardboard tokens. These are some of the ruins that you'll find, the smaller ruins, as well as the different guardians that you'll encounter. You'll have some new guardians and ruin tiles that just shuffle those into the base game, but they've got lots of cool new effects and new costs and ways to defeat them. Up next, we have a plastic bag here that's going to contain all of your print and play solo cards. These include the purple difficulty, which is going to make the game a bit more challenging for you. I really like the challenge. Once again, leave a link in the description below for you. And lastly, we have these large tiles for all of the large ruins. So you're going to have those shuffled up and placed where they go on the board. Up next, we have the new research track for the new expansion. You can use this if you want, just place it on that main game board, but it's going to offer you some new point scoring venues and some new actions that you can take when doing those research actions in the form of the lizard temple and the monkey temple. Very cool. I would recommend playing with this one. It's pretty fantastic. And lastly, we have the board supplement here, and this is where you're going to be putting specific resources. As I mentioned before, you'll open those lids and then place them where they belong on those specific spots. I really like how it shows the hierarchy of the rarity, and it just works well for keeping things clean, while also pretty and thematic with this nice ocean background. And lastly, we have all our remaining rulebooks. We've got our Expedition Leaders rulebook, a laminated version of the score pad in case you do run out, and then our base game rulebook, as well as the Search for Professor Cudel, different chapters and scenarios for those print and play solo missions. So all of those will just go nicely on the bottom, keep them nice and flat. And that is everything in the box. Let's go ahead and pack it up. First off, let's start off with that Search for Professor Cudel solo scenarios, our rulebook, as well as our laminated score sheet, and then our rulebook for the Expedition Leaders expansion. We'll then place that bottom section of the game board, our new research tracks, our special expedition leader that's a little bit larger, our score pad, as well as our home base camps for that main game. We'll then place our other expedition leaders on this far left, put all the reference cards on top, that makeup organizer on this right side. We'll place the guardian tiles in the upper left here with those small temples next to it, as well as the large temples afterwards. We'll then place the solo cards on top of those large temples, all of our player cards on this top section here, the different resource bins in this section here, as well as in that upper right corner, our different player components in these empty areas here, a silica gel packet for freshness, our red staff, as well as our extra cards that we probably won't use again, our solo campaign cards, as well as the cubes, a pencil for scoring, and our game board placed on top of everything else. And that is reorganizing the Lost Ruins of Arnak. If you have any questions about what you saw here, please let me know down in the comments below. How do you organize your copy of Lost Ruins of Arnak? Are you playing the Expedition Leaders expansion? Do you use it every time? Has it changed the way you feel or think about the game? I'd love to hear what you think. Have you tried out that solo mode? There's a lot to dive into in the Lost Ruins of Arnak experience. But thank you so much for watching SideGame Strong.